Has Ivern suddenly become the most broken jungler? What's the ADC meta looking like after all the massive changes this patch? We've got all this and much more to cover as we bring you guys a complete update on the solo queue tier list thanks to the help of our challenger players and analyzing the most recent data. And just before we get into it, if you want to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted, then go to SkillCapped.com. Stop wasting your time grinding thousands of games only to see no progress. With SkillCapped, you'll uncover the secrets to climbing ranks fast that only takes a few minutes to learn and can be immediately applied in your next game. The best part is it's completely risk-free to try, as you're kept safe with our rank up insurance. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Get the rank you've always wanted by clicking the link in the description below. Let's start off by covering the top lane tier list. Top was arguably the role least impacted by the 13.11 changes, so the tier list is not changing a whole lot. One adjustment we will be making is moving Jax up into the OP tier, taking Ornn's spot and joining Camille and Malphite. Jax is an extremely powerful carry right now due to the recent Trinity Force buffs, and if you're looking for the strong dueling fighter top laner, look no further. Renekton saw the largest buff for any top lane champ this patch and has settled in where we predicted as a solid A tier pick. The only other champ change for 13.11 that is played in the top lane was Akali, and the buffs have not been enough to significantly shift her relative power level. Our top 3 low elo champs for top lane include Malphite, Mundo, and Garen. Fiora, Jax, and Malphite are a few of the highest value bans. The Ivern mini rework has brought back a ton of strength to the champion, and if players were building him optimally, he'd be even more insane. This patch, we saw nerfs to Echoes of Helia and Ardent Sensor, which are still being bought as common core purchases on Ivern. What's actually performing much better now is a Shirelia's with Mandate Core. Ivern can actually fit into this current meta extremely well when we've got these hyper carries being spammed in the bot lane. It's a bit disgusting to think about, but just imagine a Zeri on 3 items paired up with a Yuumi and Ivern. There's literally no way the champion will ever die. Something we didn't even realize was going to be in the patch when we made our pre-patch tier list were the buffs to Daisy. These have made Ivern even more ridiculous than we originally expected, as more damage and more range to Daisy is huge. All in all, 13.11 buffs have been very positive for Ivern, and we will be giving him one extra push up the tier list, going from A into S. One other champion moving up the jungle tier list for mid-patch is Rek'Sai. The direct buffs have turned out great, and the Ghostblade nerfs have not hurt the champ much at all. There's actually 2 very unique ways of playing Rek'Sai right now, as Lethality and Bruiser are both viable. Into super squishy comps, you can run the Ghostblade Rush and go into Edge of Night second. Against more Bruisers or tanks, opting for Stridebreaker into Black Cleaver is a really great option as well. Jarvan definitely takes home the crown as the best pure ganker of the patch, but Rek'Sai is not too far behind, as she'll be moved up into our jungle S tier. The final jungler desperately in need of a push up the tier list for mid-patch is Kindred. It looks like Riot jumped the gun a little on those Kindred hotfix buffs because all they needed was to find their optimal build to really start popping off. Crit Kindred just isn't worth it. If you want to abuse the champ to its fullest potential, then start rushing Trinity Force. Players who rush Trinity Force on Kindred are winning 54% of the time, opposed to Stormrazor users at only 48%. With the Kraken buffs, it's become a viable option now, definitely better than Stormrazor, but the Trinity into Wit's core is just a cut above all else. Kindred, when played optimally, is a really strong jungle option for 13.11 and will be moved into the S tier. Moving on to our complete jungle tier list, the 3 champions in the OP tier consist of Kha'Zix, Jarvan, and Evelynn. Ghostblade nerfs this patch have led to a significant decrease in power for a few junglers. Ka has seen a drop in win rate, but he was just so broken before that even with this drop, he remains an OP pick. Hecarim has definitely been hit the hardest, as Ghostblade is nowhere near to being an optimal mythic item for the champ anymore. Look to try a more bruiser-oriented build if you're playing Hecarim this patch, consisting of Trinity Force into Black Cleaver. Once people catch on to the optimal build, we still see Hecarim being a good A-tier option. If you're playing him Lethality though, he's definitely not worth it anymore. Top 3 low elo junglers to spam include Rammus, Vi, and Nocturne. Highest on our ban list for jungle are Evelynn, Kha'Zix, and Jarvan. For the first time in ages, Azir is no longer a mediocre mid lane champion. The buffs this patch have helped push him up the tier list and will be giving him the bump into A tier, especially with the new off-tank build where you go Crown with Frozen Heart. Azir has become a bit more friendly for the average player. Of course, the skill ceiling of the champ is still extremely high, but with this more durable build, you've got more margin for error to work with. If you guys want to pick up Azir this patch, our challenger mid laner Shori has a full game commentary on our website showcasing this off-tank build. Another adjustment to the mid lane tier list consists of moving Yasuo and Yone back into A tier. Both champs struggled quite a bit immediately after the item changes, but now that optimal builds have been sorted out, they are back in pretty good spots. Even despite the nerfs this patch, it still looks like Gale Force is the best mythic item for both champions. You really can't go wrong with Gale Force into Bloodthirster, but another new build seeing a lot of success over in Korea consists of rushing Stormrazor and going into Gale Force second. Static Shiv has become stronger this patch, and it's not as terrible of a purchase, but it's still being overshadowed by other options like Storm and Bloodthirster. If we move on to taking a look at the mid lane tier list, the OP tier will consist of Annie, Ahri, and Pantheon. Talon could also be argued for the OP tier, tier, as he's still a phenomenal pick as well, but we're trying to limit the OP tier to just 3 champions max from now on, so he gets pushed into S. Qiyana is one mid laner who is hit a bit harder than most by the Ghostblade nerfs. However, she's performing insanely well with the buff Duskblade. Dusk now has a 3% better win rate than Ghostblade on Qiyana, so definitely try it out this patch if you're a Qiyana player. As players flock over to the Duskblade build, we expect Qiyana's power level to remain similar to where it was in 13.10, so we won't be moving her out of her S tier position. Zed, on the other hand, is struggling to find success with any of the lethality mythics, as his win rate with Ghostblade has dropped about 3% this patch. Eclipse now seems like the way to go, but Zed is in a much weaker spot than his AD assassin counterparts and is lower down on the tier list in A tier as a result. Corki is one mid lane champion looking low-key sleeper OP right now with the buff Trinity Force as his mythic. His play rate is still below 1%, so it's difficult to put too much merit on his statistical performance, but with more players picking up Trinity, he has seen a rise in 13.11. We'll be keeping an eye on Corki in the coming patches because he could very well make his way back into meta if players realize the potential of this Trinity build. For our top 3 low elo mid lane selections, we have Malzahar, Aurelion Sol, and Annie. The best mid lane bans of the patch are Ahri, Talon, and Fizz. A few changes being issued to the ADC tier list for mid patch, starting off with Zeri moving into the OP tier. We had moved Zeri into S for pre-patch, but another push into OP is warranted. Zeri is extremely broken with her bruiser build, and with enchanters like Yuumi, Lulu, and Melio being played a ton in solo queue, it makes her even more lethal. On top of this, we saw so many ADCs brought down in power due to the Stormrazor nerfs, so it's indirectly benefited Zeri as well. An ADC you all know I'd like to see in the OP tier, but is unfortunately just a cut below right now, is Ezreal. Just like Zeri, Ezreal is popping off with the recently buffed Trinity Force, and it should be your mythic item for the majority of games. If you can pilot Ezreal well, then you could definitely argue him for OP tier, but we feel it's much easier to see success in these hyperscalers like Kog and Zeri in this current meta for the average player. Other than moving Zeri up into the OP tier, the ADC tier is looking very similar to where we had in pre-patch. Most of our predictions have come to fruition, with Storm-reliant ADCs like Jhin, Caitlyn, and Aphelios losing the most amount of power. MF has actually not been negatively affected as much as we anticipated by the Ghostblade nerfs, so she will be pushed back up into S tier. Changes to Quick Blades this patch has seen it jump about 3% in win rate on Lucian, so be sure to try out the build of Essence Reaver into Quick Blades if you haven't already. Despite nerfs to Gale Force and Stormrazor, Lucian remains an S tier pick due to his build versatility. The best ADCs to climb low elo the fastest include Jhin, Misfortune, and Kog'Maw. Kog, Twitch, and Zeri are 3 of the highest value ADC bans. We noted in our pre-patch tier list that support Ivern could become a thing this patch, and so far it's performing extremely well. It's actually seeing a ton of success with Rengar as a duo partner, as they are winning around 54% of the time right now. Zeri also holds a very high win rate when paired with Ivern, eclipsing 55% at the time of making this video. The new Ivern W, where it provides bonus damage on hit to his allies, is a big reason to why he works much better as a support. E-Shield now also refreshes after 2 seconds if it does not damage an enemy, which is really big. The Daisy changes were huge as well, giving more range to her basic attack and significantly increasing the damage. Overall, Ivern is a very powerful champion in 13.11 for both jungle and support, and it'll be interesting to see if he becomes a nice flex pick because of this for pro play. We'll be moving Ivern up into A for support this patch. Saying this brings great pain to many of us here at SkillCapped, but Yuumi is a pretty strong support for 13.11. She synergizes so well with the likes of Zeri and Lucian, and with both champs seeing massive play rate spikes as of recent, it brought forth a lot more viability to Yuumi. Those duo combos have over a 54% win rate right now, so it's super free wins. Changes to Moonstone were positive for Yuumi this patch too, as the item has seen about a 3% spike in win rate due to the buffs. All 3 support mythics are now looking viable on Yuumi, so you can really mix things up depending on preference. From A into S tier is where we will be shifting Yuumi on the tier list. Moving on to the complete support tier list, Melio is the king of the role once again, joined by Blitzcrank and Janna in the OP tier. It's always difficult to predict where a champion will land power-wise after a mini rework, and even Riot generally has no clue, which is evident by how poor Rel is performing on release. Some hotfix buffs have already been issued to help Rel out, and she's actually looking like a really solid pick now because of them. If you want to pause and have a look at the changes, then go ahead, but there are a ton, so we won't waste your time covering them all. Basically, every single ability besides R saw some buffs, with damage going up on Q, W shield being increased, and E damage going up as well. Don't be fooled by Rel's overall solo Q win rate right now, because it will be taking into account data from the first few days of the patch to where she was extremely weak. As a result of the buffs, we definitely think she is a strong solo Q pick, and we'll be leaving her in S tier. To climb low elo the fastest from the support role, look into maining Heimerdinger, Melio, or Zyra. Rakan, Blitzcrank, and Melio are who we have as the best support bans of the patch. So that's going to conclude our tier list update, but if you want to improve fast and get the rank you've always wanted, then go to SkillCapped.com. With premium courses for every role and skill taught by the best players, SkillCapped is the perfect platform to help take your game to the next level. Take our wave control course. While you wait for your next game to start, you can learn freezing, fast pushing, slow pushing, bouncing waves, the list goes on, all in just a few minutes to maximize your improvement rate. Or maybe you just like seeing your opponent's health go to 0. Then you'll love our trading course. We even have a skill test at the end so you can see how good you really are. Players just like you are leaving 5-star reviews and raving at how helpful they are. That's not all we offer though, as every week we release 10 brand new Smurf commentaries where a challenger player teaches you how to climb out of the exact rank you're stuck in. If you're looking for something more personal instead, then we got you covered with one-on-one coaching from our trained challenger experts. All this seemed too good to be true? Well, don't worry, we're backed by a rank up guarantee. If you don't significantly improve while actively using SkillCapped, then you get your money back, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Click the link in the description below and get the rank you've always wanted. Until next time, thank you all so much for watching, and good luck in solo queue.